Step into a house from the 1980s, and you'll see things that don't exist anymore. Shag carpets, wood paneling, popcorn ceilings, all gone. But how did they disappear? Let's rewind and find out. Back in the 1980s, walking into a home felt like stepping into the future, at least their version of the future. Bold colors, funky textures, and design choices that at the time were the height of style. But fast forward to today, and most of those features have vanished without a trace. Some replaced by sleek modern designs, others abandoned for good reasons we'll soon reveal. In this video, we're counting down 10 things you'd find in almost every 80s home. But now, they're almost impossible to find. Whether you grew up with these quirky details or you're just curious about how homes used to look, get ready for a full dose of nostalgia, and maybe a few design choices you'll be glad stayed in the past. Stick around until the very end, because I guarantee there's at least one item on this list that will either make you smile or shake your head and wonder, what were we thinking back then? So which one will surprise you the most? Let's rewind and find out. Kicking off our list, wood paneling. If you walked into a home in the 1980s, chances are at least one room, if not the entire house, was wrapped in dark wooden walls. It didn't matter if it was real wood or the cheaper fake wood veneer. The goal was the same: make every space feel warm, cozy, and maybe just a little bit like a hunting lodge. In family rooms, basements, dens, you couldn't escape it. But here's the thing. What was once cozy quickly turned claustrophobic. As interior trends shifted to lighter, brighter, and more open spaces, those heavy wood panels started to feel, well, like you were living inside a cigar box. By the 90s, homeowners everywhere were ripping it down, painting over it, or covering it up with drywall. And today, unless someone's going for a full retro revival, wood paneling is practically extinct in modern homes. But if you ever stumble into an untouched 80s house, don't be surprised to find it still clinging to those walls, like the decade itself refusing to let go. Number 2 on our list, popcorn ceilings. If you ever looked up in an 80s home, you'd probably see this. A ceiling covered in a rough, bumpy texture that looked a lot like cottage cheese. But why did this bizarre trend take over? Simple. Popcorn ceilings were cheap, easy to apply, and perfect for hiding imperfections. Builders loved them because they could cover up flaws, cracks, and uneven surfaces without much effort. Plus, they claimed it helped with soundproofing, making your home quieter by dampening echoes. But there was one big problem. They were nearly impossible to clean. Dust, cobwebs, and even stains would cling to the texture like Velcro. And if you tried to scrub it, pieces would just fall off like flakes of snow. Not to mention, many of these ceilings contained asbestos. Yeah, that's right. By the late 80s, people realized these ceilings could be hazardous to your health. By the 90s and early 2000s, popcorn ceilings went from fashionable to get that out of my house ASAP. And today, they're considered an eyesore, with homeowners spending thousands just to have them scraped away. So if you see one, chances are the house hasn't been updated in a very long time. Coming in at number 3, shag carpet. If you grew up in the 80s, you probably remember this. Long, thick, fuzzy carpet that came in every color you can imagine, from burnt orange to deep avocado green. The idea was simple. The thicker and fluffier, the better. Shag carpet made walking barefoot feel like sinking your toes into a plush, fuzzy cloud. Or at least that's what we told ourselves. But here's the catch. It was a nightmare to keep clean. Dirt, crumbs, pet hair, everything just disappeared deep into those fibers, never to be seen again. And vacuuming? Good luck. Over time, that soft, luxurious feel turned into a matted mess. And once the vibrant colors started to fade, shag carpet went from trendy to tragic. By the end of the 80s, homeowners began ripping it out, replacing it with hardwood floors, laminate, or low-pile carpeting that was easier to maintain, and a lot less likely to trap decades of dust. Today, shag carpet is basically extinct outside of retro-themed rooms or vintage enthusiasts trying to recreate the vibe. But for those who had it, it's impossible to forget the feeling of sinking your feet into a sea of fluff, and maybe losing your keys in there too. At number 4, sunken living rooms. If you've ever seen an old sitcom or family home from the 1980s, chances are you've seen this architectural trend, a section of the living room that drops a step or two below the rest of the floor. It was called the conversation pit, designed to create a cozy, intimate space for gatherings, parties, or just relaxing with the family. And let's be honest, it looked cool. Walking into a living room with steps leading down to a plush seating area felt upscale, almost like you were in a VIP lounge. But in reality, it was a tripping hazard waiting to happen. If you weren't watching your step, you'd be on the floor before you knew it. And for older homeowners or families with small kids, that drop became more of a liability than a luxury. As open-concept designs gained popularity in the 90s and 2000s, the idea of breaking up the living space with elevation changes quickly fell out of favor. Homeowners wanted smooth, level floors, easier to navigate, easier to furnish, and safer for everyone. Today, sunken living rooms are rare to find unless the home has never been renovated. And if they're still there, most people choose to level them out entirely during remodels. But for a brief time, that extra step down was the ultimate symbol of a modern, stylish home. Number 5, brass fixtures. In the 1980s, nothing said fancy like shiny, polished brass. It was everywhere: doorknobs, light fixtures, faucets, cabinet handles, even bathroom accessories. If it could be made of brass, it probably was. The gleaming gold look was associated with elegance and a touch of luxury. And for a while, it worked. Homes sparkled with those bright metallic finishes that caught the light and made everything feel just a bit more upscale. But just like shag carpets and wood paneling, brass had an expiration date. As the years passed, that once trendy gold started to feel gaudy, outdated, and frankly, a little tacky. By the 90s and early 2000s, homeowners were swapping out every last bit of brass for more subdued options: brushed nickel, chrome, matte black, and even oil-rubbed bronze. Today, shiny brass fixtures are a telltale sign that a home hasn't been updated in decades. Although in recent years, aged or brushed brass has made a bit of a comeback, but definitely not the mirror-polished, blinding gold of the 80s. So if you see gleaming gold hardware all over a house, you're probably looking at a time capsule from 1986. Number 6, patterned wallpaper. If there's one thing the 1980s didn't believe in, it was subtlety, especially when it came to wallpaper. Back then, walls weren't just painted. They were dressed up in loud, bold patterns. Think oversized florals, busy geometric shapes, pastel stripes, and sometimes all of that combined. Every room had its own personality, or at least that's what people aimed for. Bathrooms with tiny pink flowers, dining rooms with gold and navy patterns, and hallways that looked like an explosion of vines and leaves. And the textures? Some wallpapers weren't just visual. They had raised surfaces you could actually feel. It wasn't just decor. It was an experience. But as trends shifted toward minimalism and neutral tones, patterned wallpaper quickly became one of the first things to go during any home renovation. By the 90s, people were steaming, scraping, and peeling those layers off the walls, a process that, if you've ever done it, you know is borderline torture. Today, while wallpaper has made a modern comeback, it's usually with subtle patterns, accent walls, or peel-and-stick designs that are way easier to remove. But those wild, full-room, in-your-face patterns of the 80s, they're pretty much extinct, and maybe that's not such a bad thing. Number 7, clunky entertainment centers. Before the era of flat-screen TVs and minimalist setups, every 1980s home had one of these, a massive, oversized entertainment center made of heavy wood. These things weren't just furniture, they were monuments tall, wide, and bulky, designed to hold a giant box-shaped TV, a VCR, stacks of VHS tapes, a stereo system, and sometimes even a glass cabinet for your fancy collectibles. The more compartments, drawers, and shelves, the better. It was a display of status, showing off your tech, your movie collection, and maybe even your vinyl records all in one place. But then, TVs got thinner. Media went digital. Suddenly, no one needed a piece of furniture that took up half the living room just to house a TV. By the 2000s, entertainment centers started vanishing, replaced by sleek TV stands, wall mounts, and streaming devices small enough to fit in your hand. And if you happen to see one of those old wooden giants today, it's probably gathering dust in someone's basement or listed online as vintage furniture, hoping someone nostalgic enough will take it off their hands. But let's be honest, we're not lifting one of those upstairs ever again. Number 8, mirrored walls. In the 1980s, homeowners had one simple trick to make any room feel bigger, brighter, and more high-end. Cover an entire wall with mirrors. Living rooms, dining rooms, even hallways. One wall was often fully mirrored from floor to ceiling. The reflection created an illusion of space and added a touch of glamour. At least, that was the idea. But in reality, most of the time it just made you constantly aware of your own reflection, from every angle. Eating dinner while watching yourself chew? Not exactly the height of sophistication. Plus, mirrored walls were a pain to keep clean. Fingerprints, smudges, and dust showed up instantly, and cleaning them was a never-ending battle. As interior design moved toward minimalism and coziness in the 90s, mirrored walls quickly became a design faux pas. Homeowners started tearing them down, covering them with drywall, or hiding them behind shelves and artwork. Today, you'll still find mirrors used decoratively. But an entire mirrored wall? That's a dead giveaway the home hasn't been updated since the Reagan era. Still, there's something undeniably 80s about stepping into a room where you can see yourself from every direction. Number 9. Ruffled curtains and valances. In the 1980s, windows weren't just functional, they were dressed to impress. And that meant layers upon layers of fabric, ruffles, pleats, and of course, the valance. If you don't remember, the valance is that short piece of fabric draped across the top of the window, usually gathered or ruffled, almost like the window was wearing a little decorative hat. Combined with long, heavy curtains, this setup was meant to add elegance and softness to a room. The more fabric, the fancier it looked. Or so people thought. But trends changed. By the 90s, people started to realize that all those layers of fabric weren't just collecting compliments. They were collecting dust. The ruffles began to look outdated, the heavy drapery felt suffocating, and people wanted cleaner, sleeker window treatments. Simple blinds, sheer panels, or minimalist curtains took over, leaving ruffled window fashions behind. Today, if you walk into a house with ruffled curtains and valances still intact, it's like stepping into a time capsule. Some might call it charmingly vintage, but most will call it a renovation opportunity. Still, there's no denying, back in the 80s, your windows weren't dressed unless they were dressed up. And finally, number 10, intercom systems built into the walls. Before smartphones, before smart speakers, and way before texting, the ultimate in-home communication tool was the intercom system. A small panel with buttons installed in the kitchen, bedrooms, and even the garage. With just a push, you could broadcast your voice throughout the house. No more yelling up the stairs or across rooms. This was the future of family communication. And let's be real. As a kid, pressing that button and hearing your voice echo through the house felt like having your own personal radio station. But while it felt high-tech in the 80s, intercom systems didn't age well. The sound quality was terrible. Most systems broke within a few years, and eventually, they just became weird plastic wall decorations no one used anymore. Plus, as cordless phones became common, followed by cell phones, the need to shout into a wall panel completely vanished. These days, if you want to talk to someone in another room, You just send a text or shout to Alexa or Google. But finding an old intercom panel still mounted in the wall? That's a classic 80s timestamp, a relic of when we thought that was the pinnacle of home technology. And there you have it, 10 things from 1980s homes that you'll almost never see today. From shag carpets to popcorn ceilings, mirrored walls to ruffled curtains, homes back then had a very specific style. And whether you love it or hate it, you can't deny it made the 80s unforgettable. Now I want to know, which of these did you have in your house growing up? Or which one do you secretly miss? Drop a comment below and tell us your favorite, or maybe the one you're glad is gone forever. And hey, if you enjoyed this trip down memory lane, don't forget to hit that like button, subscribe for more blasts from the past, and ring that bell so you don't miss what's coming next. Speaking of next, in our upcoming video, we're rewinding to the 1970s to uncover some of the strangest kitchen gadgets people actually used back then. You won't believe what passed for convenient. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you in the next rewind.